Well, there's a company in Vermont that you may or may not have heard of called Stave Puzzles. Now these puzzles are beautifully handcrafted out of wood, but they're also quite pricey, and there's a picture of one up on the screen. This isn't the expensive one, but it's up there. I took a look at the website, and the cheapest one I found was just under $200. They earned a world record title for the world's most expensive jigsaw for one that cost a little over $15,000. Now, believe it or not, they've been topped since then. But anyway, these puzzles are very high quality and extremely beautiful to look at. Well, in 1989, as a joke for April Fool's Day, they produced a puzzle called 5 Easy Pieces. The joke was that no matter how you put the puzzle together, there was always one piece that wouldn't fit. This caused a gigantic uproar, especially with how much I imagine they paid for one of these puzzles. And eventually the company brought back all 30 copies of the fake puzzles from frustrated customers. One columnist made the remark that instead of 5 easy pieces, that company should have called the puzzle Life, because there's always at least one piece that doesn't fit. I don't know if I agree that there's always a piece that doesn't fit, but it seems that maybe we struggle to make the pieces fit where they don't belong. Take evangelism. What comes to mind when you think of evangelism? To me, it's kind of taken on a negative meaning. It makes me think of televangelists like Jim Bakker, Creflo Dollar, or maybe Joel Osteen. It also brings to mind Jehovah's Witnesses knocking at my door, or a guy wildly proclaiming the ends of days on the college campus, maybe protesters in front of Planned Parenthood. But these are not what Christ intended for us to envision when we think of the word evangelist. The negatives that we put together in our mind create a false picture that we have created out of the pieces that He's given us. Pieces that were intended for a much different picture. Pieces like testimony, faith, mission. Instead of the picture that He intended for us to put together, here we are jamming them where they don't belong, saying, I know it goes this way, I'm sure this is what it's supposed to look like. We've kind of come to think of evangelist as an ugly word. But as United Methodists, we are supposed to, what? Make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. In fact, the one commandment that Jesus gave to His church besides love one another in John 13:34 was the commandment to go out and make disciples of all people in Matthew 28:19. Now, some church leaders say that the problem is that people don't take the commandment seriously enough. And because we don't take it seriously enough, we aren't reaching the people with the good news of Jesus Christ. And because of that, the church as an institution is facing declining numbers. I don't know if it's as much that we as church members aren't taking it seriously enough, but I think that there's a lot of us that maybe just don't know how to do it, or fear doing it wrong, or maybe damaging our relationships with others by bringing up that topic. But the fact is that helping a friend or neighbor to find a new life in Jesus gives our own spiritual life a huge lift. There are few things in this life that can be compared with someone coming up to you and saying, because of you, my life is so much better. And what's even better than that is having someone say, before I didn't have hope, and because you walked with me on my faith journey, I have grown in love and faith and found Jesus. And that is exactly what can happen when you invite someone to be part of the family of Christ. So what is this picture of what God intended when He asked us to go out and make disciples? What is an evangelist really supposed to do? Simply, it's someone who introduces their family, their friends, and as well as strangers to Jesus. I don't know about you, but I think my comfort zone is pretty good when it comes to talking with friends or family about my faith. But when it gets to strangers, it's a little different. After all, I don't want people to think that I'm being pushy or judgmental. And that's not really what Jesus wants. He doesn't want people tricked into believing into him. Jesus and God want a relationship with him. So what on God's green earth would possess someone to talk to a total stranger about their faith? Let's look at what our passage says today about Jesus, about Christ's compassion for the world. His compassion was the main reason that he sent us out to make new disciples. We read in Matthew 9:36, when he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Can you think of a better description of many people today than this? Harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd? I bet each of us knows somebody that fits that description. Or maybe we ourselves have felt harassed and helpless when we're not taking care of our own spiritual health. But Jesus had compassion for the crowds. And when he looked around, he said to those closest to them, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few." If we look around, what do we see today? We look around, and even if attendance is lower in churches than it used to be, it's not for lack of need. Everywhere we go, we see people who are harassed and helpless, people who are unemployed, underemployed, divorced, abused, addicted. It's as true in our time as it was in Jesus that the harvest is plentiful. And what the people out there need is a relationship with Jesus. They need to know that they are loved. They need to know that they are forgiven for whatever it is that they are miserable and causing them to drink or do drugs or spend money they don't have, compulsively eat. I'm sure you can think of a few more ways to drown your sorrow, but for the sake of time, we'll stop it there. So far, we know that God wants us to go and make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. And if we take out the puzzle box, read the instructions on the lid, what instructions does he give us? Well, the simplified, I just cannot pronounce things this morning. The simplified instructions that he gave us for our passage today were, don't go to the Gentiles, go to the people of Israel. Tell the people that the kingdom of heaven is near. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those with leprosy, drive out demons, and freely you have received, freely give. Now, some of these instructions are pretty self-explanatory. Some might need a little explanation. Like the first instruction to go to the Gentiles. Not to go to the Gentiles, only to go to the people of Israel. Why do you think he said that? Well, this instruction wasn't because there was anything wrong with the Gentiles, but mostly because Israel was God's chosen people, and he had made the covenant with them. And so, therefore, he wanted to offer them the chance to accept the gospel before the Gentiles. After the Jews were offered the truth, then the Gentiles were given the chance to accept or refuse the word. The next instruction is to tell the people that the kingdom of heaven has come near. So what does this exactly mean? Was Jesus saying the end of the earth was coming? And so, why hasn't life ended yet? Well, basically, it's a call to the people that people need to turn their hearts away from evil and turn their ways towards God. The translation is using the best words that we have in English. The word translated as repent basically means to change your mind or to change your heart. The word kingdom is not really referring to an actual physical place, but it's more like authority or power, the right to rule. So we're not being called to proclaim the end of the world, but being called to spread the word and to surrender our lives to God and to take shelter in him. that we are to open our hearts to allow God in to experience Him, to focus on doing His will, not our own. So basically, the kingdom of God has drawn near is God is close to us, and we are to take shelter in Him. The next few commands are to heal the sick, followed by raise the dead, cleanse leprosy, and drive out demons. Heal the sick almost sounds reasonable, but it still seems like a tall order, especially when you think of diseases like cancer. Most of us would love to be able to cure our loved ones of cancer. Then we get to raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, and drive out demons. I don't know about you, but those seem like a really tall order, knowing what I know about my own abilities. So how are we to fulfill these commands? Now, I do believe in miracles, and I believe that nothing is impossible for our Lord. I believe in the power of prayer. But I also know that our prayers are not always answered in the way that we want them to be. So in searching for answers to this, I came across a few different interpretations. I asked an elder when I was down at the annual conference what he thought these commands meant. After all, he had his degree and had taught a congregation for many years before retiring. The way he understood it is that Jesus is calling each of us to serve those that are in most desperate need of help, just like the people that he himself served. So think of people in your own life that you might think of as the most desperate, the most hopeless, or even beyond hope. Those might be people with addictions, mental illness, or other issues. And those are the people that he is calling us to bring the hope of Christ to. Another interpretation of raising the dead is handed down through the legacy of our own late great Peg Trossel, who lived to be 103, also known as Wanda's mom, was this: people who are dead are those that have no faith or no hope. To bring them the word or the gospel is to give them life. So every time you spread the gospel to somebody without faith, you really are raising the dead. You are raising the spiritually dead. The last part of our instructions today were freely you have received, freely give. Now this command, as it pertains to this section of the Bible, means God has given you these talents free of charge. Do not charge for these services. He didn't want the disciples to charge people money for healing their sick, etc. Later verses not included in our reading for today go on and explain that they should rely on the people in the villages to take care of them and to feed them and provide them shelter, so that through these people, God himself would provide for their needs instead of charging for their services. So in summary, God has a beautiful vision, even more beautiful than a $15,000 staged puzzle, crafted with his own hands. He needs us to do our part, fulfilling his vision by putting each intricate piece into place. And we do this by using our own lives and our own efforts to reach out and spread the hope and joy that the gospel brings, and by surrendering our will to God and accepting his will as superior to our own. We go on to click each beautifully handcrafted piece into place when we reach out to the least, the last, and the lost, and by helping them to find hope in Jesus Christ and to develop a personal relationship with God. We are to do this joyfully and without expectation of receiving anything back from those that we've helped, but instead to put our own trust in God so that he will in turn provide for our own needs through the generosity of others. So now my wish for you is to go forth this week and to ask God to open your eyes to those who need your help and guidance on their faith journeys. Don't try to force the pieces, but trust him for guidance on how these pieces should fall into place.